Hello, everybody, and welcome to the rapid fire bonus round of Fleet's Random Ramblings. Today's ramblings brought to you by Rapid Fire Question Time. You all have exactly 1 hour to ask me things before I have to go elsewhere.
That would explain why he's doing this early, then.
Indeed.
Ding 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 ding.
You have 1 hour starting now. Ask away. Rapid fire questions that I can answer quickly are prepared. Let's churn on through them.
What's better, pancakes or crepes?
Pancakes.
Next question. So,
We've just been having this discussion, so I want to know your opinion.
Yes, we've been
Pancakes.
We've been
Great.
discussing
Pancakes. They're just flat
we've been
Yorkshire
discussing
puddings.
the potential three types of pancakes that Britain makes, including British baking versus Swedish baking.
I
Pancakes.
argue the Swede dragon argues the two.
Pancakes are better because they use the same mix as Yorkshire puddings, and Yorkshire puddings are just the
yeah, but
best thing.
crepes can also use the same.
Yeah, but crepes aren't pancakes, so pancakes are better.
Yeah.
but I like the little. But then you can just spread Nutella on them and roll them up, and you've got it.
Personally, I would go with drop scones, the original form of.
Oh, no, you don't.
Yes, I do, because they're traditionally British pancakes. How would you improve the Unryu/Ikuma class carriers?
You really can't without actually increasing the cost of them beyond a point they become unreasonable as war builds. The Japanese accepted there were going to have to be sacrifices in their construction. It's why they are literally just repeat Shikakus with some of the extra billing taken off, rather than improvements on the Taihos. They are war build emergency carriers. They are supposed to be built in large numbers. They're good enough, and they're supposed to be built in relatively large numbers. Sorry, you Shikakus, same difference. I know.
Never use that phrase in front of me again, Fleet.
Why not?
Because it's wrong.
No.
Same difference does not work except in mathematics.
No, it does, because it's brilliant.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does, and I will keep using
Same difference makes no difference to me.
And I will keep using it.
You
He's
are a coward and a scoundrel.
No, I'm just
an oxymoron.
I'm just
He's
abrasive.
certainly a moron.
Perfect defensive setup for
Oxymoronically.
the US East Coast in the 1810s. An actual navy. With ships of the line.
Anything that could go beyond. Well, yeah, anything that could go toe to toe with.
Basically, you don't want static fortifications. You want two squadrons of... You want two half squadrons, so that's two 3-ship squadrons of third rates, and a single squadron of 3 first rates. On top of the big frigates and everything else you've already got. That's enough of a deterrent that you're forcing the British to actually bring big toys to deal with you. Which they may not be able to do.
Look at all them bays and coves. Those are some pretty darn big rivers. All around the Chesapeake.
Yep.
All the way down into the Carolinas.
Yep.
Has someone been watching History of Everything's new video by any chance?
Oh, for God's sake.
I'm right, though, aren't I?
Anyone else got any more questions? Come on, boys. You've...
Just gotten here. Yes, there's only 3 people in the audience because we're all here.
There are more speakers than audience members.
True, but these 3 audience members have direct access to Fleet now. They can pound me with all the questions they like.
Oh, they'll pound you.
Winter, I expect comments like that from Dragon or Foxo, not from you.
What do you mean from Dragon?
He's been corrupted
No,
by his
seriously, what do you
girlfriend.
mean you expect that from Dragon?
He's been corrupted by
I
his
wouldn't expect
girlfriend.
that from Dragon.
You haven't seen him recently.
Streamways of Steel, probably not what this is meant for.
Nope.
Although we could probably try it on Wednesday, but hey.
I might do that. I'm trying to work through the campaign once, just so I've got it through. You know, basically cut my teeth on the game, as it were.
Nah, far better to see you fail the first time. Far more
Yeah,
amusing.
it's funnier.
It is. It is.
Oh, fine, I'll do that then.
Farewell, Reaper.
Need a 5th? No. We don't need a 5th, sorry.
Realistically, I shouldn't even be in the voice call, but I'm here because I can be.
You're literally a communications officer, this is your job!
Yeah,
but
normally
I
he
haven't
just
turned up in
listens
the voice
in.
calls. I normally sit in the thing.
God damn
Audience.
it. God damn it.
I haven't had a packet of crispy.
That's your first takeaway, chair!
Huh? Yeah, I just realised I haven't had a packet of. I had a toasty for lunch, and I didn't have any crisps with it.
Good man.
Who has crisps with a toasty? Like, okay,
I
we
did.
got a round on this.
Any pub in the country that serves toasties
Ugh,
will probably serve it with crisps.
Well, first of all,
Entirely correct.
toasty. Ugh.
What do you mean? Ugh?
I mean, when I
Toasties
say
are very hit or miss.
It's cheese and ham in bread. It's simple.
Ugh, you don't mix cheese and ham for
Toasties are
starters.
very hit or
Yes,
miss.
you do. Like cheese
Ugh.
and ham toast. They're an incredibly popular thing.
You have cheese and you have ham. It can be on the same plate, but it has to be separate. You do not put ham with
No, they
cheese.
don't.
It just.
What if you
Ugh.
melt the cheese onto the ham?
Oh
and
my
put it
god,
between
you're
two
going
slices
to
of
make
toast?
me vomit.
Yeah, you have to make sure. Like, I quite like cheese when it's melted. I can't stand it when it's normal. So melting the cheese on ham and say having a croissant or something works really well.
Ooh,
Croissants are sweet. Are you?
No,
Yeah.
that's too far, Dragon. That's too far.
Yeah,
No,
that's.
no, like genuine. It's why genuinely there is the whole point of combining a savory thing like ham with something sweet.
You do
like
not
a croissant.
ever,
You do
ever
It's very
mix sweet
common
and
fruit.
savoury. That's
Yes,
What the
sacrilege.
fuck you on, Point?
That's
It's one of the
sacrilege.
common things to do in cooking is sweet and savory.
Ugh, I can't stand it. Makes my taste buds go
Wait,
wibbly wobbly.
please.
What is bread? Is it sweet or savoury?
Depends on the type
So,
of bread.
Depends on the type of
yeah,
bread.
Savoury, correct. So
If-
what's a iced roll?
a what?
It's
A nice
literally-
bun. It is a normal type bread, which is not very sweet, combined with icing on the top. Sometimes
poor
they will
man's
have
ice
jam
bun.
in the middle.
Well, I can't eat those because I think they're sacrilege. I can't eat them. I can't mix. Like, I can't. You either have sweet bread, which is bread that's made to be sweet from the start, and you have stuff like cakes and etc. and buns and other things like that. Same reason I can't have. I don't eat chocolate
But
eclairs.
also, this whole thing. Also
Oh, you
means
don't eat eclairs. That's.
I'm
Yeah.
personally not the biggest fan of them either, but
I'm not
yeah,
a big
sure.
fan of eclairs either,
But,
unless they're Cadbury
it's-
ones. Cadbury-
If someone
Cadbury.
gives me an eclair, I'm like, yes, please, thank you.
Now chalk
Well,
ices.
it's
Now
called-
now those are good. I used to have chalk
whereas
ices
I'd
when I was
argue,
at Mc-
what's it called? The whole thing of that half the culture of Europe is having savory meat with sweet bread.
Has Fleet ever heard of a sweet pie before, like an apple pie or something?
That's different. The
No, it's
pie
not.
the pie crust
It's a
isn't.
savoury base with a sweet topping, Fleet.
No, but that's no. There's a little bit of sweetness in the topping. In the
Yes,
base.
because it's apple, and the savoury
And usually-
is the base.
And 99% of pie recipes will call for you to add sugar to the apple.
Yeah, but thing is, that's
You
different.
made me want to have a treacle tart now.
Yeah, but
I
that's
don't have
different.
one.
What are
It
you,
annoys me
Harry
how much treacle tarts have become these days.
That
They're
is
so
true.
expensive. They're like £4
What's
a
the
treacle
quality
thing.
of rations on today's warships compared to the standards in World War II?
Far
Honestly,
better.
Probably a lot better, yeah.
Honestly, by the Second World War, rations on warships were because
Depends on the fleet.
fleet depending, but at least for the Allied side, you're looking
Slapped
at
the wheat on a U-boat. that's for sure.
yeah. On the Allied side, you're looking at fairly decent rations, considering the fact that most Allied ships carried refrigerators of above.
You're in the Japanese Navy, you're fucked.
Yeah, of destroyer and
Unless
above.
you're on one of the flagships, you're fucked.
You usually wouldn't have ration packs like the common soldier would. You'd actually have cooked meals.
Yeah.
Um,
You've got to remember, the US Navy
the
during
front
World
of
War
the
II
kitchen.
literally bartered with each other with ice cream.
Well, no. They didn't necessarily barter, Winter, and they would sometimes borrow without permission. That destroyer didn't need that ice cream machine.
Yeah, my point is, they had decent rations there.
Arguably, the British probably had some of the best ones at the time.
And the
because you
rum.
had You had the
Yes,
rum
there is
ration,
the
and
fact
also
that
you actually
the
have
Royal
the
Navy
as a
continues to give
an
alcohol to
institution.
its sailors.
Travesty. It was a travesty.
it should have continued. It was an honoured tradition. Then there was no reason to stop
I should
it.
give it to the army, that's what I say.
There's one thing worse than a drunken sailor. It's a drunken cavalryman.
Well, drunken sailors
I
were
feel
a
like
bit of an
drunken
over-exaggeration.
nuclear reactor operator.
Well, they're not.
They're not in the military.
Like you do realize.
Yes,
not
they
if they're
are.
on
There
the
was that
Vanguard.
North American one.
Or an astute.
Like,
Then they are in the
I
military.
mean,
Yeah.
but it's. Oh, what was I gonna say? It's not. They're not getting sloshed on rum. It was a tot a day. It was like a single
It's
mug.
a
and that's-
very small amount.
Yeah.
It genuinely was just there to basically improve morale.
I'd bring it back.
And
That's what I'd say. I'd bring it back. It might improve retention.
Britain hasn't gotten rid of it.
Yeah, we have. We got rid of it like 40 years ago.
Did we?
Yes.
No, we
Yeah,
didn't get rid
it's
of. No, we didn't get rid of it 40 years ago.
1980, wasn't it?
70.
No, it was still being used in the 90s.
No, I'm fairly certain the rum ration.
Before the top was cancelled in the
As
70s.
someone who had family members on board ships in the 90s, and they were getting daily rum rations.
No, abolished in 1970.
But it also, a lot of people still continued it. Like, as the fleet-wide thing, but a lot of commanders on ships would still continue it.
All right.
Because it keeps people happy.
Yeah, very happy.
Hmm.
But yeah, fleets no doubt going to be demanding more questions of the 4 people here so far.
Nothing new, really.
Honestly, the problem is, since you did this so early, Fleet, because you kind of had to, most people aren't around at this point.
I know, but they
Like,
they,
for the Amer-
they
for
can
what's it called?
they
East
can
Coast
catch
Americans, it'll be what, half 10?
they can catch the they can catch the what's it called?
Highlight reel?
Yeah, the what's it called?
It's
You
not
know,
even a
the-
highlight reel winter, it's so short.
Oh, Steve.
That implies there's
Oh,
highlights.
we have YouTubes. We have YouTube
Right.
questions. Stephen
Oh,
Mayer
yeah.
asked, Zeppelin as the time equivalent of modern C-130 gunships. How viable would these be for 1900 to 1920?
Not. We've had this
What, just
conversation.
put a
We've had this
Gatling
question.
gun on a Zeppelin?
No,
We've had this
um,
question before. Zeppelins would not be able to withstand the recoil very well. on the guns.
No, that's
true.
that's not
Yes.
true.
The
That's
sheer weight,
no,
the sheer weight of these things. Yes.
no,
This has been a
Dragon.
discussion you've had before, Fleet.
No, Dragon. Do you understand how basic physics works and how momentum is transferred between objects?
Fleet, I'm pretty sure I've got a higher level of education than you do.
Doesn't mean you understand physics clearly.
It does.
Does it mean you do, Fleet?
Okay, now let me ask you something. These aren't things that operate in a vacuum.
Indeed.
So, if you have let's say you have a pair of 57mm cannon on a Zeppelin, which is fairly feasible. You could do that. You could carry a pair of 57mm cannon fairly easily on an airship. That's not a problem. Sling them in gondolas underneath the, probably centrally, as near the center as you can get. Even if both those guns go off, that is not going to meaningfully affect the positioning, course, speed of the airship in a meaningful
No one brought
way.
this up.
Yes, it will.
No, it won't.
It will, and it
It really will, Fleet.
will
They
affect the
tried to
actual
attach
gondola.
large cannon to aircraft. Didn't work because of the recoil. They tried to attach large recoilless rifles to aircraft. Did not work because it put too much stress on the airframe when fired.
Aircraft,
because
aircraft are not
Even-
airships.
You're right.
Airship-
No,
airship
aircraft
are
can be
far more
built
fragile.
heavier than aircraft.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
literally
also
have
remember,
examples.
part of the reason-
We
far more
literally,
tough built.
we literally have
Also,
examples of
57mm guns are not the lightest, plus you'll need the ammunition for
what
them.
are you?
You might be able to
It's not
carry
light.
them,
You're talking.
but how many rounds of 57 are you actually going to be able to carry?
A fair amount, considering that airships during the First World War can carry about 10 tons of bombs, and did so on numerous
not
occasions.
so sure about that one.
No, but to take it as someone who is a great fan of airships and has been studying them for a great deal of time, there's a reason why I'm fairly confident that I am in the right here, because I understand how they work.
You're
and
fairly
what-
confident you're in the right about most
yeah.
things.
The heaviest German Zeppelins could carry at most 1,600 kilograms of bombs if they carried nothing else.
What are you talking? That's bollocks. Pardon me. Pardon the pun.
Like-
That's.
Pardon the pun. What pun?
Oh,
Like,
there is no. Where did you find this, Dragon?
Probably on the same site you found yours. Ergo, it's
LZ-54
about the
tactical
same value.
designation L9 Zeppelin. Well, L19 Zeppelin.
The L19s.
Rigid class, P class.
No, God, no wonder you've got that value. That's a P class. That's
Right, which
That's-
is a 1915 Zeppelin.
Yeah.
If you're talking about Zeppelins, you'd have to go off all of them. Like, unless we're going off the absolute heaviest. Even then, the absolute
But
heaviest.
how stable of a gun platform would it even be?
It's not. We've had this conversation before,
considering
and even
that we've-
Fleet admitted it wasn't great.
considering that we've. That was regarding air-to-air gunnery. We have
No,
we have
no, it's
accounts. Dragon, Dragon, you're my friend, but sometimes you can just be the most dense when it comes to stuff like this.
So can you, I'm
You
afraid.
looked in the mirror.
If it's a bit windy, you know, how's your
We have
aiming gonna
we
be
have
with it?
examples of British lighter than aircraft armed with machine guns engaging in gunnery duels with U-boats, and they are landing rounds from about
And
2,000 yards away with their machine
Yes.
guns.
Yeah,
guess
because it's
what
a machine
happened
gun.
in that situation? The Zeppelins tended to lose.
No, they.
We have a historical example of this, in fact,
One of-
especially later
one
down
of
the
the-
line.
If you
That's
can hit
not a-
them,
that's
they can
not a-
hit you.
that's not a-
yeah.
You just, I can't sometimes.
Like-
Fucking idiots.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, yeah, because if you're engaging say if you're engaging a U-boat with a 57 on a Zeppelin, obviously the deck gun's going to be no.
It depends what depends what
Straight
rounds
back
the deck
at
guns
your
are firing.
Nice big gas bag.
If it's not if it's not a
I mean-
proximity fuse round, if it's just a solid HE, it'll go in and out if it doesn't strike a. Well, if it strikes a framing piece of the airship, it's
I mean, you've still got
it's-
what, a 4-inch hole in your gas bag out both sides.
You can ditch the ballast. That's actually there are airships that have survived.
Aim
Leakages
slightly further
worse
to the
than
right
that.
and fire again. Slightly further, fire because you're not firing one round, you're firing multiple.
The question is, who's
And
going
the
to win
likelihood
that?
of
Who's
hitting the
going to
same
win
gas
that
bag
fight?
every single time.
In theory, there's no. Well, our problem is we've gotten to the bit before we've actually gotten to the. We've gotten to this bit before we've actually gotten through the first bit of the. Yes, you can practically build an aerial gun platform. You have to use light ordnance, nothing bigger than 3-inch, and even then, if you're lucky, you'll only carry a single gun plus the ammunition for it, possibly some machine guns as well. Airships can be made to have about 10 to 20 tons of disposable lift if you build them right, but that's about as much as you can get without going into double-hulled territory, and no one ever actually built a double-hulled airship, so we don't know how that would actually have worked. But in theory, you can get 10 to 20 tons out of a good single-hull design of the period, especially when we get towards the late period. If we're having to deal with the first of the airships, we can use 37mm cannon, like carry a single 37, and about 120 rounds of ammunition, plus 2 or 3 machine guns in the early models of these aerial gunships. And then you can move up to, as the carry weight of airships increases as you go through the period, you can carry the 3-inch, and maybe even 2 3-inch or a single 5-inch gun as you get right towards the end. But if you are carrying a 5-inch, that's pretty much all you're carrying. You're not carrying any bombs, you're not carrying any machine guns, you're carrying the 5-inch plus its ammunition and gun crew.
Surely also you'd be forced much lower than your normal operating altitudes. If, you're trying to fire a...
If you want accurate gunnery,
Oh yeah, like
you
if
will
you
want to
if
be able
you
to see the target.
yeah if you're gonna be engaging in this gunship role, you'll be at about 1,000 feet for normal transit.
Which...
But you'll be at 1,000 feet for normal transit because well, again, airships were never the most pressurized period at the best of times. So you can't really move with any degree of certainty. You need to be able to find your target, see your target. Then when you're actually engaging in, you can't carry any form of fire control computer apart from perhaps some basic handheld rangefinders, or you'll probably be honestly, what's the word? Doing it by eye. You might have some ranging rifles that could work, like as in a rifle caliber weapon that has similar ballistics to the gun, to try and lay
good
on the
luck
target.
watching that fall of shot.
Yeah, if it's a tracer round, you probably have to be a machine gun of some kind.
That's it. You
to
probably
follow
could
the
stick a
tracer.
couple of small ones on, but it's not going to be effective. And also, the big problem here is, if you're shooting them, they
Yeah.
will shoot you.
Yeah, if they're
Yeah, there's
if
pretty
they're-
much nothing you can engage.
if you're firing,
It's not going to shoot back with a larger caliber weapon. Really.
yeah, if you're dealing with merchant vessels, there's some merit to the whole, to the concept. If you're dealing with colonial affairs, there's some merit to the concept. But using it in
If
any
you're dealing with
but using it in any form of this is the thing that I'm getting to that I was going to be my whole point from the start, which is there's no real use case for. You can build vessels that can perform this role, but in terms of actually using them to perform it, that's an entirely different kettle of fish.
Against civilian shipping, merchant shipping, wouldn't it just be easier to drop the shell out of the Zeppelin anyway, with a guy with just a hurl a 25-pound bomb out the window instead of
there's a reason why airships were actually really quite good as bombers, because you could, in the days before reliable anti-aircraft guns, you could just sit up at 10,000 feet thereabouts. You could quite literally float around, just put a bomb here, 2 bombs over there. I mean, there's a very famous example of a German Zeppelin that bombed a Romanian harbour. And it literally just floated around, and you read about the action, and it's just, we put 3 bombs on that target, we sent 4 bombs on that target, we floated over there, dropped a bomb on that, we floated over there, dropped 6 bombs on that. Like, they could just float around in the era before reliable anti-aircraft guns and just drop a bomb here, a bomb there, 3 bombs over there. And they had that. Then they had them in capacity. Like, you're talking about hundreds. You're talking about up to 100 bombs on some of these things, right? Ranging in size from 25-pound bombs through to 100-pounders through to 250-pounders. Some airships carry different sizes of bombs as well, for different targets to be engaged. There's a reason why the whole concept of airships carrying guns was removed. Although, that being said, I believe some of the larger coastal scout dirigibles, aka the non-rigid airships operated by the British, did actually carry some cannon, from what I'm aware. I think it was either 37s or 6-pounders. Which, I think only a few carried them. And it was on the larger of the... Because it's important to bear in mind that a 6-pounder pedestal mount weighs less than you think. If you think about it, ignore the whole idea of an artillery gun as we would know it. Just think it's just you've got a gun, the breech, and a mount for it, and that's basically it. That's not as much weight as you think. You're looking about 2-3 tons total for that whole assembly. It's less weight than you think.
That's also a lot of weight for a Zeppelin.
Doable, though. Take that, plus fuel. Ballast. It's doable. But actually,
doable but ill-advised.
Yes, doable but ill-advised. Your only use case for them really is as some form of coastal patrol asset during peacetime, or as a Coast Guard asset. You know.
So like your rule the waves thing.
Not really. More of a how would you describe? It's also fairly good at actually deterring submarines. Like, if you've got a... The reason I say this is not because of the guns. Like, if you have a let's say a rigid carries let's say towards the end of this period in the 20s, let's say it carries a pair of 57mm guns, a bunch of machine guns, and 4 to 6 depth charges. That's a ship that can engage a submarine whether it's surfaced or whether it's submerged. And it conduct long-range patrols as well. That's the only use case for them I can see. And even then, the guns are only part of the weapon system of the craft. It's not a full, just a gunship for gunship's sake. Right, moving on. How would World War II develop if there was a force that forces all aircraft and airships down to the ground? If you've got no aircraft of any kind at all, then there has to be a battleship building race. The submarine has just become incredibly more valuable. The Battle of the Atlantic has just become incredibly more fraught. The fixed fortifications of the French have suddenly become much more useful. Basically, you'll have to see a return to large caliber artillery. And I mean large, we're talking railway guns, that sort of thing, because you basically need that level of... If you want something to go a longer distance than standard artillery, you need the specialized long-barreled weapons that you can't find in a field artillery role.
So, a couple of points I would say in counter. Submarines might have some more development, but the problem is, if we're going off Germany, they physically can't produce more submarines than they already are, / man them all. So Germany, that's
Or
not going to really
well,
change.
they're not willing to, because that would be
Britain-
diverting resources from everything else.
Yeah, it's important to bear in
Britain
mind
is
that
probably also
the
not going to invest that much more heavily in submarines.
No, that
Doesn't
wasn't what
really
I...
fit their doctrine.
That wasn't...
I know, I'm just going through the various things.
Yeah, but that wasn't what I was
The
saying.
US again.
Let
You were
him
saying
finish.
submarines become a lot more common, and also the Battle of the Atlantic becomes more fraught. I genuinely don't think it does too much. Coastally, there might be more problems because you no longer have the coastal patrols. But even then, you just see an increase in destroyer presence or corvette presence.
The Mid-Atlantic Gap? The area
Right?
where it's
You mean
most dangerous?
You mean the area which you mean an area after like 1941, 42ish that was basically no longer that dangerous? because
Yeah,
they
Dragon.
d-
Yeah,
they
Dragon.
countermeasures?
Yeah,
Oh,
Dragon.
stand up. How
Yeah,
did-
Dragon. Why was that? Why did that happen? Because long-range
Mostly
aircraft
because
closed it.
No.
No, Dragon, it wasn't. No, you're wrong.
Wait, let Dragon at least finish what he's saying, please.
Countermeasures such as B-24 escort carrier? Yes and no. It was genuinely because, on average, more anti-submarine warfare was being developed for ships. Hedgehog became much more common. It's what we saw vast increases in sinking vessels when Hedgehog was rolled out. You had better sonar on destroyers, better escorts, vastly increased numbers of actual anti-submarine chaser escort vessels escorting convoys. It wasn't just because of planes.
No,
Also better convoy routing and mapping.
but the aircraft
That's the
were...
whole point of it.
You're
No, I
massively
get how impressive the
underestimating...
planes were, but also, it's a not every convoy had those escort carriers, nor did they have B-24s by the time
It's
the
not...
Battle of Atlantic was
they're
starting
not.
to
It's not
wind
about
down.
the aircraft. It's not about sticking aircraft with convoys. It's about constantly patrolling the Atlantic, meaning that submarines just can't operate on the surface, reducing their endurance, forcing them to dive, forcing them
Then
to break
why
contact.
did most of the time they spend their time on the surface historically, Fleet?
Yeah,
Because they
because
did.
Fleet, right, I've got to correct you here. Most air patrols done against submarines were done in the Bay of Biscay because it's shallow water where subs can't dive away.
Like,
And most anti-submarine kills were
planes
done
were
there
definitely
by
very
aircraft.
good. Don't get me wrong. They were amazing, but they were not the only reason the Battle of Atlantic went the way it did. There is a whole section dedicated
I am
to
aware of that, but
why
you're
convoy
massively,
structure was improved without
you're
even using planes.
massively I
Also,
can't believe
the
I'm
idea of
hearing
long
this.
barrel artillery, more railway guns, probably won't happen. Also, the French fortifications become more impressive as well. No, because the French probably won't. The French will probably go the way they did historically, which results in problems for the Maginot Line in general. The Maginot was breached primarily because of German forces just going around it half the time. You're making a lot of potential assumptions which might not necessarily pan out because history... Well, certain things will definitely be different. Like,
And
the
remember,
reduction of
the
planes
Maginot
will
Line,
be
Dragon,
definitely problematic.
Dragon, remember the Maginot Line is hardened against the railway guns of World War One, and there's not much difference between them of World War One and World War Two.
Like, losing plane... Right, so development is all the same up at the beginning of the war, nothing flies anymore. Well, then you have a lot of very annoyed people, to be fair, that, yes, well, that was all wasted, and the factories would likely be converted.
There's also no strategic bombing of either side, which
Which
changes
admittedly
things.
help- Britain a lot in the early game, but primarily helps Germany and Japan. late game.
To be fair,
It helps their countries not being bombed to the ground. Sort of
yeah,
thing.
but the impact of strategic bombing was the Germans. The Germans
Was massive.
there were effects to be sure, but there have been
Leaked. Are you telling me wiping out entire cities wasn't very important?
no. What I'm saying is that while it will enable Germany to work more efficiently, the Germans were also doing a great deal of effort themselves to not gear their economy for war in a way that was effective. Shall we
Right,
say?
But I think you are really missing here just how the Axis strategic bombing run didn't affect the Allies that greatly overall. It was definitely a problem, but it didn't affect that much. Versus the Allied strategic bombing against the Axis was completely crippling. Just take a look at Operation Chastise for even just a small example of just this one bombing raid took out the entire Ruhr Valley industrial complex.
Yeah, but
And then you had
use
other
the slave labor. The Nazis had it working again within the week.
But it was
Because
still
these
massively
two
set.
strategic
The
bombing-
efficiency had massively lowered, and other areas were also flattened.
Not really.
Yes,
Not really, because
we do
people
have knowledge of this on both
underestimate.
sides.
Yeah, and they rebuilt it and distributed it because people underestimate how fucking evil the Nazis were.
Oh no, we
To-
get that, but
To mitigate the effects of the Allied strategic bombing command, it didn't have much effect because they enslaved the entirety of Europe for it to not have a major effect. They looted France to the ground for machinery. They looted Poland to the ground for machinery. They
Also,
looted the
another
Czech. They
problem
looted
is
the
though, to
Italians.
say that came back. The whole thing of it came back up in a week is a highly contested claim. Because a large number of German ones do point out that the overall impact of even just Operation Chastise significantly crippled industrial capacity. They were able to get it back up and running, but it was to only about a tenth of what it was, which was quite a big loss. Like,
At least
overall,
at first, but then
strategic
they did
bombing of the Allies was incredibly strong.
Oh, it was effective, and it definitely
And did
contributed.
make a lot.
It definitely contributed to shortening the war. But it's important that we remember why it was effective. It wasn't just factories flattened. We've had an impact. There were many other things that contributed to it.
Honestly,
Like
some
the
of the
whole-
worst stuff was infrastructural damage, like destroying
Oh
railways.
yeah, like that was actually some more effect. And also there was the whole impact, the drain on the Luftwaffe over the course of the bombing campaign.
On the other hand, the Germans are no longer having to worry about planes. While it will cause them a lot of problems of so much for our aerial superiority. At the early point, it does then go right. Well, now we no longer need to worry about enemy planes.
Yeah, but remember,
might help
this
them a
is
fair bit.
Hermann Goering.
Yeah, but
It's Fat
at this
Man.
point, Hermann
He's
Goering
gonna
might
find a way
lose
to
a lot.
fly anyway.
No, he
But
can't.
no, like the whole point is that they physically can't. Like the
nothing
universe has
can
said
fly.
Nothing is allowed to fly.
Not
during
airships,
World War II.
not airships, not aircraft. Apparently, nothing.
So,
As in-
birds either.
No, what? Sorry.
Do birds still exist?
Apparently, and they still fly.
But nothing human-made can fly.
Which is just
So therefore, things would end very weirdly. I do suspect you might see a lot more bogged down campaigns in certain areas.
hard to
Welcome
say,
still
to
though.
World War One again.
Yeah,
I know. I
basically.
suppose we would still
Welcome
see
to
France
World War
falling
I again.
because of how the nature of war had changed.
Hmm.
Because I don't think I highly doubt they would just go back to full trench warfare.
They don't have a
It
choice.
was the better trench warfare because without the air superiority, you don't get the Luftwaffe hitting the BEF in position as they move to cut off the Army. Which
Yeah.
means that Rommel's push gets either halted or cut off by the BEF. At that point, it goes back to trench warfare, and hello,
Again,
Maginot
I-
Line.
Again, I would argue we can't necessarily say for certain that would work. That it butterflies
A
so
large-
hard.
A large chunk of the reason that the French and the British were unable to leverage the mass that they had against the German forces punching through the Ardennes was because the Luftwaffe was basically interdicting communications lines. But basically, it was blowing up communications lines, cutting telephone cables, destroying railway connections, blowing up moving columns of infantry and tanks.
Machine gunning fuel trucks is what stopped the BEF responding quick enough.
Yeah, this is the thing. If that's not there, there's nothing to stop the British bringing the entirety, basically utilising the nature of the BEF, which is a fully mechanised force, to go and literally put a fully mechanised force in the way of another fully mechanised force, by using the one thing that they actually have in their favour, the fact they are mechanised and motorised. The BEF can literally mount up and go whizzing off down the Belgian roads, to go and basically stand in Rommel's path and go, "Excuse me, sunshine, where do you think you're going?" Which then,
I'm content. Because if you think about it, the BES is going to be a lot bigger. Because they won't convert the massive
No, they
Morris
won't.
mega factory
Uh,
to producing Spitfires.
nope,
that's a
not,
point. That's a point. Yeah, that's
no,
a
they,
point.
no, they would. No, they would, because the question explicitly states, to clarify, development will continue the same. It's just as soon as war is declared, nothing no longer flies.
Yeah.
So the preparations
It's the big
up to
thing.
that point
The big,
will still be
the
in
big
place.
thing. The big thing for the massive Morris motor plant in Birmingham, which was the highlight of the Shadowscape, was the mass production of aircraft engines. Suddenly you don't have aircraft, and you now have a whole shit ton of industry that's now free to build whatever you want.
The British are going to mechanise incredibly incredibly quickly.
Lee, I'm thinking of something much more cursed.
Oh.
The British, by 1939 and 40, have the early versions of a very special engine,
Are you
a
saying that,
world-beating.
are you saying the Meteor goes in things more quickly?
You could very well see a meteor-powered A-13.
Or Foxo
no,
to make it.
you don't. I don't think you do, honestly.
It fits, and they're making them. And they suddenly don't have an aircraft to
Well-
put it in.
No, right. The Merlin is in production at this point.
Yeah, the
Meteor
Merlin.
very much is not.
Wrong engine, but yeah, it's the Merlin. And I'm sorry, but if you replace the Bedford, I think it's the Bedford Meadows, or it's the Leyland, the A-13 has on the
There's no point making the change on the A-13, because that would needlessly complicate the production
there
line,
is.
and war's already ongoing. But for whatever tank follows the A-13, we'll probably have the Meteor.
Crusader.
Yeah, so the Crusader will probably have, and it'll be 6-pounder Crusaders, because the BEF won't lose all its tanks in
No, it
France.
wouldn't.
Yes, it would be.
No, it wouldn't.
The
They'd
6-pounder
still, they'd
was.
still go with the 2-pounder.
Because, no, think about it. A major bottleneck with the Cromwell is that they didn't have enough aluminium alloys for the gearboxes on them. They suddenly have a shit ton of those alloys because they're not making aircraft anymore.
I will
Which
also,
means the main bottleneck for the Cromwell.
yeah, and I would also point out that the reason that the 6-pounder was delayed was because, well, we lost all of our anti-tank guns and our tanks and our motorized equipment in France in 1940.
And also,
So there's no reason.
please counterpoint on the A-13 thing.
Yes.
A big delay in the production of the A-13 and the Crusaders is the fact they've run out of engines for them.
Well, I'm not talking. When that delay occurs, they will be switched over. But until that delay occurs, they won't be.
That delay's 39.
Well, in that case, then.
I'm sorry, here's your pre-war cruiser tank. How much horsepower does it have? 600.
More than the gearbox can handle.
No, the gearboxes could handle it.
Well, then. Well, and
I'm not sure if I don't think the
even-
A-13's one could, I'll be honest.
And even if it can't, then there's this wonderful thing called governors and limiters. And honestly,
But at that point, why are you sticking it in?
it's an engine. It's there.
Because
Use
it's
it.
an engine.
It's there.
They've
But-
run out
but
of engines
also-
in 39.
But their other engine are still fully tooled and can still be made. So I don't
But
think
they've
you would
run
see
out of
A13s
engines,
with
Dragon.
with
She's literally
Merlin.
said they
Right,
literally said they've
right.
run out of
Listen,
engines.
yes,
They have a shortage. What
yes,
do you know what the
but-
word shortage means?
But Fleet, you do know what tooling means, though.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
They
aware.
already have these engine factories. They may have ran out of engines at the moment, but their factories are already there producing and trying to catch back up. It will take time to retool various other factories to get these Merlins into these tanks and then do the alterations. By then, it's probably easier to just keep going with the older engines for the A13. Just keep that going. Build up the production speed necessary for the Merlin converted to Meteor early, and stick that in the next tank.
The thing is that you're
Because
correct.
that's how you keep production efficiency.
I mean, you're
running.
correct, but they're all. Let's face it, they're gonna try and put the Meteor in the A13, even
Oh,
if
they will do
even
it. There'll probably be a couple of test vehicles,
in that case.
but they'll probably go
No,
more useful in another vehicle.
and Bovington does have a war-produced A13 with a Merlin engine in.
Not a Meteor or a Merlin. They just shoved it in there.
I would have to
Because-
check that one, because I'm a bit skeptical about that, I have to admit.
Because it was a test to see if they could fit it in a Crusader.
Hmm.
So they fitted it in an A13, and it kind of worked. He did a bit of work.
But that also then just goes to what I said of, you'll see a couple of test vehicles, but I don't think you'd actually see it go into production.
I think you would.
Why not? It's an extra line of
It just doesn't make
A13s.
it,
Why not, Dragon? Like you
because-
you don't have
because
you
you're
don't have
already
to.
wanting to move beyond the A13 by
Well,
this point.
I mean, that's
Like,
true.
as historical, they were already trying to move away from A13 to something better. So they would probably continue.
You've got it as a
doing that.
fallback if you need it. You know, it's
Because
it's a
the
proven
issue is-
concept.
Is you have the Morris Mega Factory that's producing literally thousands of Merlins. It's producing more Merlins than all of the engine production combined. It makes sense top of it using the engine you're producing shitloads of. And you have spare parts for. Because remember, the British Army in Africa also has spare parts for the Meadows. Part of the reason the Churchill's so shit early on.
Mhm.
Honestly, something that's more interesting to think about is what are the navies going to do with all their carriers they've now got? Because they're kind of pointless.
Convert
And
them to light battle cruisers.
Oh god, Return of Courageous and Glorious.
No. You take off the flight deck, you put in like 12 triple 8-inch barbettes, and then you just have like this super heavy cruiser. That's the size of
Personally,
a battle.
I personally more see them being used as transport ships, or at least the fast ones.
Yeah, but that's not
No, right.
fun.
Reaper, you say that's Fox on crack. You've not seen her when she's truly going mental with stuff. Like, it is glorious when she's actually going nuts with designs.
If you want to hear the origin of this idea, look up salvage sarcasm and submarines. Hale, Ohio.
It's a fan fiction thing, Reaper, and it's amusing.
What's this all? Oh, here we go.
Honestly, it's better than one idea I've heard. A friend about if anyone's familiar with in the chat the M110 203mm mobile artillery piece that the Americans had.
yes.
One person that we know suggested, what if you just stick like 15 to 20 of them on a flight deck, bolted down?
What? You wouldn't even need to bolt them down.
Well, you do in case you probably would in case the ships moving about.
You would, because the ship would roll about.
You can lash
Yeah,
them
you're
down.
right.
You can lash them down, but you don't need to bolt
That's
them
what- yeah.
down.
Like you want something to keep them tied down, sort
But
of thing, so that
why?
they're not having risk move. Because they could.
All right. Okay. Now I
Right.
get to tear something apart quickly. Before I go, sadly, because time is running up on me.
Yeah, basically something like that,
faster
Dromo,
than I
just on a flight
expected.
deck instead.
Okay, question please.
Yes, Foxo.
Can me and Dragon continue this?
I mean,
I would say wait till you're home.
I don't see why not.
Also, technically, then it wouldn't be fleets rambling.
It'd be Foxo's. Foxo's.
Also, if you
I
remember,
can't-
you have trouble
I'm-
getting it to work on your phone.
But
I've got it working on my phone now.
look,
Not quite what I meant.
yeah,
Anyway, you had a thing
yeah,
that you wanted to tear
So
apart. Before you go,
apparently,
later anyway.
this Alt JSDMF did a carrier design on ChatGPT.
Yes, it's
let me
Drac Room. It's Drac Room Reaper that he's renamed.
Oh,
because he got annoyed that you kept
Dr.
calling him the
Reaper.
wrong name.
I'm never gonna stop making that joke because it's funny.
This is how you get people to murder you, Fleet.
Wrong. They can't murder me. I am the one who murdered. Anyway, 35 to 40,000 tons, around 200 meters, 270 meters. Beam around 34 meters. Draft 9 meters. Steam or early gas turbines is delivering 150,000 shaft horsepower for a speed of 33 knots. Air wing 80 to 100 aircraft. Armament dual purpose guns, rapid fire air guns, early guided missile systems. Advanced radar for air and surface search, radar communications, reinforced flight deck, an improved damage control system. Armament. Air defense 12 by 12 5-inch guns in dual twin mounts, 40 Mibofas, 40 Orlikans on a Japanese ship. Alright then. And apparently she has depth charge racks, sonar, and early hedgehog on a carrier. Alright then.
Right. So, I'll be
Radar.
honest, overall, it's not the worst if we exclude it being Japanese.
It gets worse.
I've been reading through it.
And apparently there's another one as well, which is a similar carrier. You want to put bloody Kikas and Shindens on this vessel? No.
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
No, you can't. You can't land a 262 on a carrier. No.
You could.
No.
You could.
Bad.
Is it recommended? No. And
No.
it probably won't take off again very easily. It'll require maintenance, but you could definitely do it.
With that thing's
Dragon,
landing speed and
You could
performance
land
profile.
a 262 on a carrier. It would just be once and explosively.
Yeah, you
No,
can't.
if
No.
you set up the crash net,
No,
it
there's-
actually probably would work.
With the landing profile of the 262, the way you have to fly it on the approach, etc. It is not. It's not capable of landing on an aircraft carrier. It just isn't. Right. Look, I'm sorry.
Overall, the
I'm
actual stats are not worst.
yes, but they are somewhat cursed. I'm sorry to.
It's basically an asset.
I'm sorry to love you and leave you, folks. I know. I was tearing ChatGPT apart. I thought that was obvious. But anyway, right. Dragon, if you want to keep this going, you can do. I have to cut this short, I'm afraid. Like I said, I promised it was going to be short and sweet, and I wasn't joking. Because I have to go and deal with other things of some importance. So I'm sorry that this has been a relatively short one for you all. If I get
48
back,
minutes.
if I get back later, I'll see how I feel. Well, if I get back later, I'll see about running a perhaps follow-on, a part 2 maybe. See how I feel when I get home. Since I have to do something very somber today. I'm going to kill. Yes, I'm going to kill the Prime Minister.
Why? That'll happen naturally.
Funnily enough, I know.
With the results of the election.
It's funny, ain't it? But yeah, so I'm going to love you and leave you. Thanks everyone for coming. Sorry for making this a short and sweet one. Normal service resumed next week. Watch out for big things coming in the near future. I know I'm being dragged into a bunch of different Shanghai things, and if you're concerned about the lack of fleet, please go and watch Brew Ships yesterday. I featured in a large part of Dr. Clark's Brew Ships that he ran yesterday. So if you are lacking a bit of fleet and you want a bit more fleet in your life, go and check out that as a substitute. Right, folks, take care. Hope you had a fantastic time, and I will see you all later. I will leave the Ramblings running so that Dragon and Foxo can keep going, but this is the end of the streamed section of Ramblings. Apologies for everybody for the